folks, so welcome back to our big premiere for this month. This is going to be 15 of my personal favorite. This list is, of course, as subjective as any other, but my favorite horror movie vehicles. So, in ranking these, I took into consideration how important the car is to the story, if the car is actually a character, whether it be self-sufficient or animated in some way or not, or whether it's just the characters in the story depend on these for whatever reason. But it also takes into effect my personal preference for aesthetics, as well as if it's a good movie or a bad movie. All of that sort of stuff kind of goes into my ranking on this one. I'm not ranking the movies, just the cars. Make that clear. Not ranking the movies. And there are some surprises thrown in here. Had some help on this list from a few friends, so I want to give out a couple of quick shout outs on that before we kick off into this. Graham Miller, aka Net Reality, chipped up a couple of them. Jimmy Woolbright, Shannon Yancey, Leo Dahill, a couple of others. You know who you are if you chimed in on that list, including my lovely stepdaughter. So, yeah, there are 15 cars on here plus 2 honorable mentions. So let's go ahead and hit the intro right quick, and we'll get on to the list.
I think we've arrived, Tatter.
Yeah, but is anybody home?
No, we'll see. Hello?
I can't get my seatbelt on.
Hello?
Alright, so number 17 total, our first honorable mention, is the 1978 Ford Pinto from Cujo. And it's not a good looking car. The Pintos were always ugly cars. This one's piss yellow, technically sunshine yellow. So it's an ugly car, but it does play a key point in the story, because the car, even though it does put them in danger from heat exhaustion and all of that, because of those big windows in it, but it also saves the two main characters from the dog itself. So while it's not aesthetically pleasing, it's not a character in the movie itself, it's an honorable mention for this list. So it's kind of really all I have to say about a Ford Pinto. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so the next movie on our list is Duel. Now, there's two vehicles in this one. There is a 1958 Peterbilt 283 and a 1971 Plymouth Valiant. So neither one of these vehicles are good-looking vehicles. An interesting thing that I read about them, though, the red car, or the color that they chose for the Valiant, they chose the Valiant because it was a small car, family-oriented style, four-door car. The truck, the Peterbilt, they chose it because the way that the headlights sit over and the way the bumper on it was shaped, it looked like a face. So it kind of gave it personality. But they chose the red color for the car so that it would stand out against the desert background. They chose the rust color for the truck so that it would kind of blend in, so that it would be like a predator in its natural habitat, coming out to attack. And originally the car was like bright red. They painted the car red for the movie. But they decided that would make Dennis Weaver's character look like he was probably vehicular car oriented. With that kind of car, you're not going to have a gearhead or motorhead, whatever you want to call them, but you're going to have, but if he kept that car through the desert and it was pristine, they felt that it would make it look like he might have tweaked the car or added some kind of performance to it or taken really good care of it, where it would take out some of the risk factor of a possible breakdown that a normal car might have in that situation. So they took it in and intentionally dulled down the paint on it. And I can kind of see what they were saying with that. You see this car and it's a normal, average, everyday car versus this truck, And I guess to me, if you had the character, like they said, I can see exactly what they're saying about that. If that car was pristine and perfect, maybe he was someone who did a lot of maintenance on it. It was perfect. It would have seemed like the car could have pulled away a little bit easier if it was a better maintained car. So that was our second honorable mention. So let's get on to the real list. All right, so number 15 is the first movie on our list that deals with more than one vehicle in it. So this is The Highwaymen, not to be confused with the story of Bonnie and Clyde that they just did. I really enjoy this film. It's fairly short. It's very quick. It's mostly a car chase scene with a few other things in between it. It comes down to a duel between these two vehicles, which I guess since this is the car list, I should actually mention the vehicles and not just the movie. The bad guy in it drives a 1971 Cadillac Eldorado. Our hero car is a 1968 Plymouth Barracuda Superstock. One of the key points in this movie is the Superstock version is a limited car. There was only so many made, so the guy who works for the National Highway Safety, not even a real cop, tracks the guy down using the fact that it's an oddball vehicle. It's a chase movie. It came out right around that time where they were doing like the Saw movies and stuff. So while there's not that level of gore in it. There's not a whole lot of that. It is shot in the same kind of way that the movies from that era look. So it really has that somewhat downplayed on it, as far as like the resolution and all that on the film. So it comes out kind of gritty and kind of dark, but not so far gone that it's not lit well enough for you to see. A lot of things happen at night in the first quarter or first third of it. The first act is all nighttime stuff. Everything's well lit in that you can see what's going on, but at the same time it's kind of dark. The filters that they used over the lenses give it a nice depth to it. And I really enjoy this film. I think it's underviewed and undervalued. So if you haven't seen it, check out Highwaymen. Let's move on to number 14. Alright, so number 14 on our list is Wheels of Terror. It's a low budget. My understanding is it was originally designed to be like a made-for home video VHS release, and ended up getting picked up by the network and aired on a CBS Sunday Movie or ABC Sunday Movie, whatever it was. But ended up getting aired, straight to television. So there's not real gore, there's no real tension. The car in it is a modified 74 Dodge Charger. I do have to look at my stat sheet, that's why I keep looking down, to make sure I'm getting the cars right so that y'all don't yell at me in the comments. The internet. So school bus driver with a souped up minibus versus the guy in a souped up Charger. It's an interesting modification on it. The front end of it is the 74, the tail light section's a 71. It's a dirty beat up Charger versus a souped up school bus in the desert. Honestly, you can find the full video of it on YouTube. If you like those kind of movies like that, the cat and mouse movies, car chase, you never see who's inside the car. It's a B movie at best, but it's a lot of fun, and I saw it when I was a kid. Well, I wasn't really that much of a kid, I was a teenager, but I'm old. So, so I have this affection for it. I enjoy this movie. The acting on it is soap opera quality, for the most part. A little bit better than some places, but it's mostly soap opera quality. It's a fun little brainless romp through the desert, and it's a cool car, even though it would be so much better if it was cleaned up and shiny and pretty, because, well, I like cars. Alright, so number 13 on our list is Death Proof. Now, Death Proof is another one of those movies that has multiple cars in it. In this case, it has 4 cars in it that we're going to talk about. We're going to start with the 2 Death Proof cars. The 70 Nova, the Chevy Nova, and the 69 Dodge Charger. Of course, the most famous 69 Dodge Charger is the General Lee. Another one that's probably more famous with younger people now would be the 70 version that they used as the muscle car in the Fast and Furious movies. Then they have the 1970 Challenger, the white Challenger in it, which is a reference to a car movie from the 70s. Well, I mean, all these cars in this movie, this whole movie is dedicated to those road movies from the 70s. Those low-budget, grindhouse, because that's what this was from, movies from the 70s. So the Challenger is a direct reference to a movie called Vanishing Point. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot slow by today's standards. If you have a thing for 70s cinema, grindhouse features, check it out. Otherwise, it's kind of slow. Watch it to say you've seen it, but you're probably not going to enjoy it if a modern car chase movie is more if Fast and Furious is more your style. The other car in it is the 73 Mustang. This car in this movie is a reference to the original Eleanor from the original Gone in 60 Seconds, again, 70s road movie. So, I mean, my personal favorite is the Charger, but I don't dislike any of the cars in it. I wouldn't turn any of them down for sure. But, yeah, so that was my number, my number 13, so let's move on to number 12.
Sure he doesn't get it. I ain't my ways, you know.
Keep the kids back. Keep the kids back, honey.
Well. Oh. Oh. Well, I never.
Yeah, and you never will with them soup cans on your head.
Alright, so number 12 on this list is Elvira's 1958 T-Bird. For those of you who aren't into cars, that would be a Ford Thunderbird. So yeah, okay, Elvira is not a horror movie. It's not even a horror comedy. It's a comedy that plays off of horror elements versus normal people. But Elvira is a horror icon, and the car is cool as hell. She still owns the car. That actually is her personal car. The car was built and designed by Counts Customs. If you've seen Counting Cars on, I think it's on Discovery or maybe on History, one of those channels. The car guys that are on there are actually built the car for her. There is a modification for the movie that she doesn't have in real life. Real life, she uses the full-size 50s steering wheel. In the movie, she uses a small chain link steering wheel. She lives in California and Las Vegas, respectively. You know, that's not going to be legal with that size steering wheel. And the chain links, you could get your fingers caught in. You know, highway safety standards, it won't pass. So, and as much as most of those laws like that are kind of silly, I can kind of see it with the chain link. You could get your hand caught in that and cause an accident. So the pentagram steering wheel is not on the car. She drives it regularly, but you know, most everything else is. She wanted a convertible for the movie, but couldn't find one. But she found this one, and it was a hard top, so they actually cut the top off. If you notice in the movie or even in the clip, the back of it's completely flat. You don't have that the bag over that you would have with a soft top, and that model wasn't available with a hard top fold. So it's only a fair weather car because literally there is no top to it because they cut it off. I just think it's a fun car. I think it's a fun movie. If you haven't ever seen it, give it a shot. It's stupid, but it's fun.
Grandpa? The widow Johnson called. She said to pick her up at 7 instead of 8, okay?
We got a date tonight?
I guess so. She said not to be late.
Ah, I better get cleaned up then, huh?
All right, so number 11 on our list is the International Harvester from The Lost Boys. Now, The Lost Boys does feature a very cool old 50s Ford Fairlane with the hardtop, with the convertible hardtop. But for me, that one's in there for a split second. It's a neat car. There's a cute scene in the barn. But the International Harvester plays a big role in the end. I'm not going to spoil the end of it, but it's a 40-year-old movie. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out. But it does play a big role at the end. It's Grandpa's everyday truck. When I was researching this, I found something kind of interesting. There seems to be some discrepancies on the internet about what the actual year on it is. According to IMDb, it's a 1939 International Harvester M2-4. But according to International Harvester, that doesn't exist. They didn't make that until 41. So, yeah, it's just one of those weird things. And it's obviously a military vehicle. It was obviously, you can look at it and tell that it was designed and built for the military. So that may be commercial listing versus built for the military versus war surplus, whatever. But so for me, because of the role that this car plays at the end of it versus the rescue mission, first come first staked, that the Fairlane plays, to me this is a more important vehicle in this movie. It's a little bit more rare. In fact, it's actually very rare and very unique, and yeah, it plays a major role in the end of the movie. So for me, that's why that one made my list. So let's move on.
Miss you, baby.
Okay, you could not have a list of horror movie cars without mentioning this car. It is a 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Deluxe Edition. And I'm not real sure what the difference between the regular and the deluxe was. Probably interior package and trim, but who knows. So if you've ever seen any Sam Raimi movie, this car is in there. He fell in love with this car in his teens. His best friend's mother had one, and I think he ended up buying it from her, and you know, kind of his first car, and it's his signature bit in all his movies. He puts it in the Evil Dead movies and the TV series. Of course, it goes back in time with him, gets beat up, switched over to a steampunk zombie killing machine, or deadite killing machine. They're not technically zombies, I guess. But, you know, and then of course it somehow magically comes back, or he buys another one exactly the same or whatever for the TV series, but it's implied that it's the same one. So, you know, it could not have this list without that, you know, yellow beat up Oldsmobile. And the Ash movies are or the Evil Dead movies are such good movies, such iconic movies in the horror pantheon that it had to be on this list. So, as far as my ranking of vehicles goes, just because it's so iconic, it's up this high. It's not, the car itself is not aesthetically pleasing to me. It's a boat, but hey, you know, it's a horror icon in and of itself. So
for a ride.
You out of your fucking mind?
All right, so number 9 on my list is the Jaguar from Doomsday. Dubbed the Leatherface Jaguar because of the fact that it's covered in human skin. Doomsday is a fun movie. It's a plague movie, zombie movie, mixed with a little bit of Mad Max. It's one of those movies that a lot of people complain doesn't know what it wants to be, but what it is just fun. There is actually another car in the movie that should probably be mentioned. In the clip you saw it, the Bentley that they're driving, but that car is just a lot of money. It doesn't really have the personality that the Marauders cars have. There's several different ones that I could have picked, but the main car for the main bad guy in it is a 1960 Jaguar Mark III covered in human skin. How could I leave that off of a horror movie list? And he's got his dead girlfriend strapped in the seat beside him. I mean, it's a fun movie for me. I think it's underrated considerably. It's not brilliant. It's by no means brilliant, but it is a fun movie, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, that was my number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Alright, so number 8 on my list is Phantasm. The car that's used in the first 2 Phantasm movies, and then again I think in 4. They kind of do switch it up a little bit. It's a 1971 440 cal induction Plymouth Barracuda. Now, I will say this, the 1971 Hemi Barracuda is my all-time favorite muscle car. The shaker scoop on it, all the things that make the Hemi what it is, the power that it has, especially versus the actual size of the engine. One of the odd things about it is that the director of the movie, the guy who's behind all of the Phantasm movies, that was his favorite car too, and he found one that was the 440 with the cowl hood. He bought that one and used it in the first 2 movies because he wanted that car. Well, he bought it and used it in the first movie, and then when he got around to making the second movie, he still had it. Unfortunately, he didn't have it much longer after that because he wrecked it. But the interesting thing of it is that even in the little clip that I just showed, it says 440 and then it says Hemi Cuda on it, but the 440 is the Magnum engine. Again, like I said, this is my favorite muscle car, my favorite car of all time. The dual headlights, the way that the body flares sit on it, the way that the paint was done on it, it's my favorite car. So this one I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about. But anyway, so the 440 had a little bit bigger engine, weighed a little bit more, didn't produce as much horsepower. but it was what he could find, and it's what they used for the movie. But he did change the badges to make people who didn't know what it was think it was a Hemi, but it's not. So, yeah, again, my favorite car, and I would have it in plum crazy, not in black. But that's just me. So for number 7 on it is Mad Max, the original Mad Max Interceptor. In the other, progressively in the other Mad Max movies, it was changed up, but for me, the best one as far as the car goes is the original. So the original is a 73 Australian edition Ford Falcon XB GT. XB GT. Really cool car. The way they fixed it up is really cool. I'm not such a huge fan of the first Mad Max movie, but I do enjoy the second and third ones, and the new one I really liked. And, you know, as I said, the Doomsday movie that I mentioned a while ago is very much a second half of it. It's very much a tribute to the Mad Max movies. It's very much a road movie. This one is truly more horror. The ones after that are definitely more of adventure type movies with horror elements thrown in them, or at least post-apocalyptic elements thrown in them, which can be horror, of course. But, you know, this car became an icon all over the world, even though you could only get it in Australia. There's videos all over YouTube of people who have reproduced them, you know, spent no expense to have them imported over and fixed all up and all of that stuff. So it's an iconic car. It's a damn good looking car. And yeah, we'll move on.
It's Calamity Jane Kelly, queen of the road, at the wheel of that mean old ornery stud bull. Here she is, that adorable swastika sweetheart, Matilda the Hun from Milwaukee, and her lovable Nazi navigator, Herman the German Fox. And at the wheel, Ray Nero the hero Lottigan. Never has finished the Transcontinental, but 3 big wins in the provinces this season, plus a brand new beast, means Nero's not fiddling around. And you know, there's only one person who guns an engine like that. It's gotta be the roughest, tough guy of them all, Machine Gun Joe Viterbo. Here he comes, Machine Gun Joe, loved by thousands, hated by millions. Sole survivor of the Titanic pileup of '95, only 2-time winner of the Transcontinental Road Race, Frankenstein.
Okay, so number 6 on the list is Death Race, the original Death Race 2000. The Frankenstein car was a Corvette. The other cars were, I tried looking them up. I really couldn't find a whole lot of information on what they were built on, other than the Machine Gun Joe is a Carmagia, but there was 15 different ones telling me it was different models and different years, whatever. But of course these are super fantasy cars. This is one of the first movies that I remember seeing that was in that horror vein, but not truly a horror. Roger Corman produced it, and it has the Roger Corman thumbprint all over it. It's a fun, dumb road movie. If you've never seen it, if all you've seen is the new versions of it, those are good, but they're definitely more action oriented, and they're definitely more of a modern movie. Death Race 2000 is, it's definitely a product of its time. There's orange blood in it. There is, as you saw in the clip, there's one character is dressed in Nazi gear, and it was the 70s, so that was a joke. That was funny. People weren't quite so uptight about that sort of thing. And I do understand how that could be offensive to a lot of people, but it's neither here nor there, because it was the 70s, and the early 70s at that. So yeah, I'm not going to get into that too much. There's very much, the personas of these characters is very much in the vein of like what pro wrestling characters would be. That's exactly what it reminds me of, is those 80s pro wrestling characters. You've got the mobster, you've got the gladiator, you've got the Nazi, you've got the monster, oh, and you have the bullfighter, the cowgirl. So, I mean, these are definitely over-the-top personas that are intended to both draw fame and or both draw thinking. To draw both anger as well as support, depending on where you fall in whatever, you have the good guys, the bad guys on camera, and then when you get behind the scenes, you see that they're all just people. It's very much in that professional wrestling mindset, and yeah, it's a gore fest in places, except for the fact that in a couple of places the blood is orange. So, and I'm sure that just has to do with the film and how it was developed in those days, but yeah, watching it now, especially watching it in HD, and yeah, the scene in the trench, the fisherman, and the blood is bright orange. So, it's a laugh. The movie's fun. If you've never seen the original, take 2 hours out of your day and go see it, because it is worth it, and the cars are cool as fuck.
Hey, you gotta raise your hood! We got a digital radio killer now! You try to run, we zap your electrical system!
Oh my God. What's wrong? Put it on!
Packard? Get a load of this!
Connect the son of a bitch and let's go!
Alright, so number 5 on our list is the Wraith car. The Wraith car was a 1981 M45 Turbo Interceptor prototype pace car. So Chrysler division set a test for their engineers to develop a car to be the pace car for the International Racing League, IndyCar race, that sort of thing. The F1 type series. But it had to be a a car that was safe at 200 miles an hour. It had to go 200 miles an hour. It had to be safe at 200 miles an hour, and it had to have a 4-cylinder engine. So they took a year. They developed this car, built it, tested it. It got that close, and they said, "Yeah, good enough." It actually did 186 miles an hour. It never quite broke the 200. As far as before that, they actually tweaked it afterwards, and it did actually eventually hit it. But by the time they needed it for a pace car, it was 14 miles an hour off, and they said close enough. So they loaned this car out to make a movie with it to promote the car and what it did and all of that. The movie is fairly well known, but not super well known. It's definitely a road movie, definitely a race car movie. The car plays the ghost, or the vehicle driven by a ghost. It has Charlie Sheen in it. It has Clint Howard in it. Has Randy Quaid in it, and a couple of other people that you've probably seen as bit parts in other movies. But it is seriously an 80s movie, and it makes no apologies for that, and it's wonderful for what it is. It's a fun road picture. It's a fun race car picture, and probably wouldn't have things like Fast and Furious without this movie. So if you've never seen it, check it out. For the car alone, it's worth seeing.
Turns out you're a twin and... Jesus! What the hell's his problem? Just get out of his way, Jerry! Let him pass you, Jerry! What the hell are you doing? Go around me! Get off the road and let him pass you! He's nuts! I know he's nuts! Pull over! Go around me! Slow down and let him fucking pass you! I'm trying!
Alright, so number 4 on my list is the truck from Jeepers Creepers. It's a 1941 Chevy delivery van, cab-over engine, heavy duty, technically. That's one of those funny things. It was modified for the movie. Technically, it's the heavy duty frame, but the heavy duty version of it actually had dualies in the back, and this one doesn't. It's got that great train horn on it. So everybody knows the crap behind the scenes that went on with that. We're not going to discuss that at all. I'm just talking about the truck. You can think what you want to of the guy behind it. You can think what you want to. You can watch it or not watch it. That's up to you. As far as it goes, I enjoyed these movies. Well, 1 and 2. The funny thing about it is, I first saw the first one right after it came out, and I thought, well, that's okay. It's kind of meh. Then when the second one came out, I saw it. I thought, it's all right. It's more. The first one's more traditional horror monster movie. Quite a bit of use of the truck in the first one. Hardly any in the second one. But a little while went by, and I picked up the set when they came out as a double feature, and I actually sat and watched it as a double feature, as one really long movie. I really like the way that they play off of each other when they're watched that way. The third one is crap. Pure crap. It falls technically in between 1 and 2. It transitions you between what happens in 1 and what happens in 2. But but it's really not very good. The effects in it are absolutely atrocious. The CG in it is made for TV, and it was. So the third one's a throwaway. It is kind of neat to watch it in perspective of the truck. If you're interested in learning more about the kind of booby traps and the kind of things that the truck can do, because it seems to have somewhat of a mind of its own at times. Yeah, it's cool for that. So the truck's on this list. The movies aren't, especially the third one. But like I said, when I watched it as a double feature, 1 and 2, I like the way that they play off of each other. The darkness and all of that of the first one really makes the second one fun. It's a lot more high energy. It's a lot less straight horror movie and more leaning towards the adventure side of things, even though it is a horror character, a monster movie. And when you watch it like that, the second one does that. Well, while you're watching the second one, you realize the atmosphere in the first one is really good. The direction in it, as far as it goes, the cinematography in it is really good. So you pick up those things about the first one while you're watching the second one, and while you're watching the first one, before you watch the second one, you're kind of anticipating the more fun, the more high energy of the second one. So they really work well together as a double feature. But separately, they're kind of eh. But that truck is cool as hell, and that train horn on it, that would scare the crap out of anybody you come up behind. So let's move on.
My brand new car, and look at the garbage coming out of your mouth. And you know what I think? I think it's a damn rock and roll TV. Look at what that stuff does to people. Sends drugs, losing your immortal soul. Whole goddamn civilization's about to take the big flush. You think newspapers are any better? Spreading the filth around. You know what ain't newspapers gonna save this world? Ain't TV. I'm telling you right here and now. By his eyesight, all is holy. I'm telling you, that he's the Lord Jesus. Fool, yes!
So number 3 on the list is Maximum Overdrive. How could you make a list of movie vehicles and not have the Green Goblin truck from Maximum Overdrive? It's a 1988 18-wheeler. According to the official thing on it, it is a white Western Star. Is the model of the truck. But again, it's one of those things where people on the internet like to argue. So there are several accounts of it being a Peterbilt. There's several accounts of it being a Mack. I don't know those kind of vehicles well enough to tell you definitively what it is. And who's to say that the transportation department didn't edit it or alter it to make it fit the aesthetic that they were looking for. But that Green Goblin face is iconic. It's number 3 for a reason. The movie is a guilty pleasure. The acting in it is mediocre, but they're having fun, and you can tell they're having fun. Stephen King directed it himself. I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, and obviously he's not a great director. He hasn't directed anything since. This one's not directed all that well. There are a couple of characters in it who are really annoying, and you'll either love them for it or hate them for it. So, it's a guilty pleasure. It's so much fun. The Earth is caught in the tail of a comet. All the machines, well, not all the machines, selected machines, take on a life of their own and start trying to kill off humans. Yeah, I mean, there's a steamroller kill. There's a remote control car that's an off-screen kill, but it's, you know, kid going down the road on his bike, and he looks over to there's a remote control car that's killed someone. There's a Coke machine kill. How awesome is that, right? The soundtrack to it is all by AC/DC, with the exception of a couple of songs. It's all materials they've already done before. There's one instrumental that's new for it. I don't remember which one it was. I don't know. I don't remember what it is now. And then, of course, the title song, Who Made Who, which is, of course, again, referenced in the film itself. If you know the scene where I'm with Wanda and the rocket launcher. Actually, it's an RPG, but that's neither here nor there. It's a fun movie. It's a dumb movie. The actors in it, like I said, they're just there to have fun, collect the paycheck, make a dumb movie. It's a popcorn movie, it's a monster movie, and it's got that awesome-ass Green Goblin truck. So that's number 3. Let's go to number 2. All right, so number 2 on the list is the car. The car is a 1971 Lincoln Continental Mark III that is heavily, heavily modified. The guy who built the car is George Barris. If you don't know who that is, Google. But a quick rundown of a few of his most famous cars. The car from the Monkees, the original 1960s Batmobile from the TV series, the bubble car that he did. I don't remember what it was called, a space car or something. Anyway, it literally had a huge glass dome over the top of it. He did some awesome custom cars back then, bikes, anything, hot rods, all kinds of stuff like that. Just Google Barris. Oh, he did the Munsters cars too. Both of those. So George Barris is an icon when it comes to the custom car world. And of course this one's a lot more subtle than what those are. But I'll stick a picture of a stock 71 Continental in here too. But so you can see what he did. The movie itself is a 70s popcorn flick. It is a lot of fun. The car is demonic. It can't cross over into the cemetery because the cemetery is hallowed ground. They made a sequel to it recently, and the sequel was absolute garbage. And the car in it really wasn't very cool either, which is a damn shame. But yeah, so the car is possessed, or it's an incarnation of a demon, or demonic in some sort of way. It can't cross holy ground. And it goes out after this little desert town and starts killing off people. And James Brolin is the sheriff, and he goes out, and the clip that you saw of him in it. So gorgeous car, really cool idea, really cool look to it. The movie's a popcorn movie. It's not a great movie, but the car is absolutely epic, to the point that people know that car who have never seen the movie. So it had to be on the list somewhere, and for me, the way that this car looks and the way that this car is styled, it's at number 2 for me. So I think by this point you know what's number 1 because it's probably the most iconic horror car, but let's go ahead and talk about it.
Show me.
Alright, so obviously number 1 on the list is going to have to be Christine. It's an epic movie, great soundtrack, gorgeous car. John Carpenter's directed it. It's flawlessly directed. It's one of his absolute best directions. It's based on a Stephen King book, and actually even came out like they actually started shooting it before the book was even finished. The car is a 1958 Plymouth Fury. It's odd how many Chrysler products have ended up on my list, isn't it? But yeah, it's a 58 Fury. It's actually a modified Belvedere with a better paint job, but that's not really as important as it goes. The car was actually only ever available factory in brown. I think an off-white, and they painted it red. Supposedly it was a custom, a factory custom, which you could special order stuff back then like that. So, like I said, John Carpenter directed it. It's a Stephen King book that's actually quite good. Not really a fan, but hey, this is the 3rd Stephen King to make the list, so I'll at least like some of his shit, right? Of course, the car is possessed, and then the love for, and it manipulates the guy who buys it. Young kid, impressionable. The Dean Stockwell is in this, did a lot of movies at this time, very good actor. Harry Dean Stanton is in it. Then several other people that you'll recognize from small and large parts of other movies. Very well done in every respect. The effects in this movie where the car is wrecked and puts itself back together, all done practically, all done in camera. No CGI because it didn't even exist back in '83. Brilliant movie, good cast, awesome car. Had to be number 1 on my list. I'm sure it's number 1 on yours. But if you have others that you would like to mention, drop them down in the comments below. I'd love to read what your top 5, top 10, top 3. Especially if you disagree with me. Let me know. I want to know what you think. So again, I really want to say thank you so much for everybody who has watched this video. For those of you who made it for the premiere, I cannot thank you enough. I'll talk to you in the comments below. All of that stuff. As with all of my videos, down in the description below, there's going to be the links to my Teespring, links to my Facebook page, my recipes on ELR, all of that stuff, all the links down below, and my PayPal. If you like what I do and like what I've done and want to support the channel, you can check out my Teespring, or you can hit me up straight up on PayPal. Alright, so thank you so much for tuning in. Video for next month will be on the last Wednesday of the month, same as this one, 6 p.m. Central Time, midnight UK time. If you're available, please join us. And yeah, as always, y'all have a good one, and thank you for watching.